Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and here I like to explore the world of fountain pens, ink, and paper. And today we're going to get two out of those three things, fountain pen and ink. And I'm really excited because both of them are from companies that I have not yet shared reviews of here on the channel. And the first is this one, the Opus 88 Twilight Sonata. It's an eyedropper pen in an absolutely gorgeous resin. And I do need to make a clarification here. Goldspot did provide this pen and the Wearingeul Ink for review. Both of them are Goldspot exclusives, and I will share a link in the description below. And I do want to thank them for sending these items for review. I also want to let you know that I'm going to tell you exactly what I think, regardless of where the pen came from or whether I paid for it or whether it was sent for review. But I will tell you right off the bat, I'm digging that resin. How about you? Isn't that good looking? Twilight Sonata, Opus 88, and the ink will be Wearingeul's Call of Cthulhu. Also, an exclusive to Goldspot in this color. I will do my more extended ink review in a later video, but I'll give you a preview when we do the writing test. So with that, it's time to spin the camera and take a closer look. All right, first we have the box, Opus 88 in Twilight Sonata. And it is a nice simple box. I think it makes a nice presentation if you're using this for a gift. It does have a magnetic flap to open that up. And what do we find? We have a pen. We have a silicone O-ring, we have an eyedropper, and we have the instructions on how to fill, write, and clean your new Opus 88 pen. As we take a closer look at the components, there is a glass eyedropper included. There is also a spare silicone O-ring that is included. And here we have the Opus 88 Demo Twilight Sonata. So this is in shape a pen, of course, that is already in their model line. The material here is what really stands out and is what makes this pen unique. It is a collaboration between Goldspot and Opus 88 and Mackenzie Penworks. This is a diamond cast resin. And let me just spin this around and let you see that, and hopefully my lighting will do this justice. Really, really nice. And a terrific resin. What they were trying to capture is, at the end of the day, just at twilight, when all of these colors, you can start to really see the night sky, you see the fading color at sunset, and you just, well, you get something a lot like this. And I think they've done a great job. Of course, you know, I love blue, and I love a really good looking resin, and this is definitely that. And they've done a very good job, as you can see here, in the turning and the polishing of the resin. It looks fantastic. The top, of course, is a regular flat polished finial done nicely. The clip and trim is a really nice glossy black with really good spring to it, and I like that. This should go over fabric pretty easily, I would think, though you might need a pretty big pocket, right? And laser engraved centered below that clip is Opus 88. Just look at that material as I turn that around. That just really looks fantastic. You can just see yourself staring at the sky, looking up at the Milky Way. This may be one of those pens that gets in the way of your productivity as much as it helps it from time to time. But that's okay. I like pens like that. You come on down, and this is very nicely smoothed and well-rounded. The barrel stays fairly straight with just the slightest taper as you come toward that blind cap. And the function of the blind cap here has nothing to do with the filling, but rather this is your safety valve. So you open up that valve so that the ink will flow, or you tighten the valve back down so that no ink will flow. And for example, when you're traveling, driving around the mountains with altitude changes, or on a plane, that should keep the ink where it belongs. Now when you come to the end of that blind cap, you will find the number of your pen. There are 170 of these pens total, so it's not only exclusive to Goldspot, it's just exclusive, period. There are not going to be very many of these pens, and with the look of the resin, I would not think that those will hang around in the back room for very long. Opening up the cap will take 1, 2, 3 1/4 turns. Probably with an eyedropper, having 3 1/4 turns is a good thing. It does not post at all, so we'll set that aside. And in a pen like this, that's probably good. You don't want to mar that resin at all. And what you find here is a nice long pen. The fact it doesn't post doesn't matter. Really good size for almost all hands. Very comfortable grip. And of course, if you've written with some of their pens before, you'll know this is a shape that is familiar on Opus 88 pens. I like a grip like this where it's longer and tapered there at the grip and still has the flare at the end. Very similar in feel to my Birmingham Pen Company 6th Avenue pens, which is a very good thing because I really like the feel of those pens. And you may have already noticed, so let's just go ahead and talk about it. The number 6 nib. This is made by Jowo. It has a PVD coating in black. Look at the glossy black coating on that nib. Very simple and clean, no decorative scrolling. I think this was the way to go. It looks really good and I like it. Sometimes less is more. I think they struck a good balance. It does designate the size of the nib here on the side, which I do appreciate. So this is a medium nib. I did dip test it a little while ago and it wrote very nicely, as we'll see here in the writing test in a second. Now to fill the pen, what you will do is remove the grip section, and some would suggest that you open up that safety valve a little bit just to give you a little bit better opening in here so that the ink can clear it and come down into the barrel, which has an ink capacity of 3 milliliters. So that is really good. I've gotten some ink samples from stores that were smaller than that, so you'll be able to just put the whole thing in it at once and be done with it. Now, while I've got this open, let me just point out something. 2 things, really, that caught my eye when I was looking over this pen earlier. One is that safety shutoff valve, don't know that I can get this lit up real well. As I tried to adjust it, my light was either too bright or too dim, but nothing in between. But it's a nice sized stopper for that safety valve. And one of the reasons for that is that, as you can see, the turning of the section here is conical, and so that safety valve comes down and is conical, and that's a lot of surface area to be able to tighten down and make sure that the pen is well and truly stopped. The second thing I noticed and wanted to point out to you is how nice and thick that acrylic wall is. So it has, even though it's really quite light, it has a very good quality feel for its lightness. There is the heft there. Look at that all lit up with the flashlight. I just got distracted all over again. Squirrel! Anyway, it has, despite being a fairly light pen, when it's empty, it does have a nice substantial feel, and you can see there that it has not been made overly thin. It's a nice substantial pen. You see the same here on the cap. Now there's no liner, but you don't need one in a pen like this. And these pens are pretty well known for not drying out badly at all. So I'll see how that works over the long term, but so far things look quite promising. You'll see the threads are really quite well done. There is another O-ring here at the section, as there should be. And as you turn that, you just want to be sure and get that snug on the O-ring. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this back down as well. Hear a little bit of squeak. The tolerances on this pen look to be quite tight in a good way, and you can see here how nicely done the fitting and turning is. So that's the overall look of the pen. Let's do a quick size comparison and also a comparison to some other pens I have with a similar diamond cast resin, and then I'll show you again how to fill it, and we'll do our writing test. All right, so here we have our Opus Twilight Sonata. Here is a pen that is also a diamond cast resin, and this is from Heinz Pens, and check that out. Really similar in size, really similar in shape, and when I saw this pen, I immediately thought back to this really gorgeous pen that I got from Jim Heinz. And then another eyedropper is the Mahjong C4. Now, it's not as substantial in its inner parts as the Opus 88. And then another large pen that also has a diamond cast resin is the Narwhal Voyage. This is the New York City version of that pen, and this is a piston filler. But you know, size-wise, even though they're all a little bit different in shape, they're all pretty comparable. So if you're familiar with any of these other pens, you kind of get an idea of the size of this Opus 88. And looking at that resin, you know, I really like all three. And this one I think is just absolutely gorgeous. It's meant to look like, you know, kind of the blue marble photos of the earth, and I think it does an awesome job. But I tell you what, I think this Twilight Sonata resin really holds its own against that. And I like it better than what's used in this Narwhal Voyage. And here we have the pens unposted. I won't bother to post these pens because this pen doesn't post and neither do a couple of these others. The main thing size-wise to me here is that it's a very comfortable pen to write with, unposted. And so at least to me, that's really not an issue. All right, let's open up the ink from Wearingeul. I'm excited about this again because I have not looked closely at their inks yet. Been on my list. I've been wanting to explore and share some here on the channel. You know, I like to do the pens around the world. I guess I ought to have done an ink around the world as well. This one comes from South Korea. It's a company that likes to have literary ties in their shades and in the naming of their inks, and I like that too. This one, of course, is tied to H.P. Lovecraft's Call of the Cthulhu. So it has this kind of ominous dark teal as you're dealing with some ancient alien monster at the bottom of the sea who's going to get in and drive you crazy. It's kind of like driving in Austin, in other words. Anyway, really cool shade. It's supposed to have some kind of purplish black sheening. There's also some good shading in the writing sample that I did earlier, and I think we're going to like this. So let's open this up. All right, in the box is a printed color sample card. I'm sharing this with you not just so you can kind of see what we should be able to expect, but even more than that, I really like that they had the RGB and Pantone information here on the card. This is going to make it really easy for me when I go to make my thumbnail, for example. But I just think that's good information to have. I really think more ink companies ought to think about doing something like that. Very cool. Now, I like the bottle. I'll get into that a little bit more when I do the actual ink review. Again, to fill the pen with ink, I have just opened that valve just to move it down a little bit out of the way, but you don't necessarily have to do that. You're going to open up the grip section there. You just grab your ink. I'm going to squeeze that a few times. Looks like that's what I'm going to get on that one. And put it down till it just touches that valve and squeeze that into the pen. Then once you're satisfied with the amount of ink that you have in your pen, which again is up to 3 milliliters, really generous, you simply tighten that back down. Now you can go ahead and put the cap back on and let the pen sit until that nib is saturated. Or if you are impatient, like I am at the moment, you can go ahead and dip that pen a little bit and kind of get that feed saturated so that you can get a jump start on things. All right, just a reminder, you do want to open up that blind cap there when you're writing with this pen because that will open up the flow of ink, and that's how you control that in an eyedropper with a safety valve, just in case it's something you're not familiar with. Now I jumped to the Twilight Sonata name of the resin, and of this particular edition, it is an Opus 88 demo. And it is a medium nib. And again, that's made by Yovo. Nice and smooth. On this paper I hear a little audible feedback, but I'm not really getting much. Nothing negative in the feel of the writing, no drag, no anything like that. Really writes nicely, and really, feel of this pen is quite good. Balance is just spot on. Somebody asked me the other day why I stop in the middle of things and dot my I's and pick up my pen. And of course, I don't know. But I did notice, while looking through some ancestry stuff this week, that my grandfather's writing, very similar to my own, I noticed that he picked up his pen and went to the next letter or dotted I or whatever at about the same place as I do. Interesting, because he's not the one who taught me cursive. but we share that little trait in common. Kind of funny. Now I really like, even though this is not quite dry yet, I really like the shading of that dark teal. And I'll show you here in a second on some Tomoe River paper in an old Habanichi planner how that paper really brings out the sheen better than this Rhodia does. Even with lesser sheen here on the Rhodia, I like the shading of the ink. Now, I have been accused at times of being cheesy, and lately I've been doing different variations of cheese and other things with a basic French ham and cheese, the croque monsieur. And in the absence of Gruyere, I have been using Havarti or Gouda, and wishing I had a little bit of German butter cheese. And I can tell you the Havarti is really Gouda on that sandwich. First, do a little bit of a wetness check. I forgot that a second ago. Yeah, it's not too bad at all. And then let's do our speed test, because what good is 3 milliliters of ink if it doesn't get to that nib in time? Let's try this out, okay? As always, real time. Nothing. There's just a little bit of a light thing, and I can tell you that that is definitely me. This did very, very well on the speed test. I have a feeling it does just fine. Look at that. Just dragging with zero pressure does just fine. All right, now before I give you my closing thoughts and my assessment of the pen, let me just show you what this ink looks like on Tomoe River paper. If I can get that angle right, there's a really nice, that purplish black sheen there in that. You can see it all across here from where I'm sitting. I don't know always what I'm getting on camera until I go back and watch it kind of on my television after I've already uploaded it, and that's when I get the best view. But you can see it. You can see it here, and you can see it here and here. I think it looks really good. And when I do the real ink test, and I will do a video of an ink test where I try it on several different papers and show you bleed through and things like that and how well it does in water fastness, I think I'm going to be really pleased with the ink. I've gotten to where I really like an ink with sheen, and I like it when it's both subtle and when it is over the top, like with, say, Colorverse Blue Dragon. That one's kind of over the top levels of sheen. Just distracting when you work, though I think it would pair very nicely with this pen and this resin, wouldn't it? So what about the pen? What do I think? Well, I'll tell you what. In the size comparison, I compared it to some other pens with similar quality resins, like this one and the Heinz pen. And I would say that my first impression of the pen, in its craftsmanship, really well done. It's a simple design, so you don't expect a whole lot of problems there, but the work that is done is quite good. And I'm thinking about the way that they do the rounding at the end of the cap, how nice and tight and even this seam is. Everything is just done well. I think the grip section, very comfortable. The balance of the pen is just kind of just in a sweet spot that I like. So no real issues there. As far as the writing experience, yeah, it's just an enjoyable pen to write with. Pleasant writing pen. I like the nib. This one is tuned well. I don't feel like there's anything that I need to do that immediately. It's doing just fine. I like the stealthy black trim. I'm not always a black trim person, but I think it suits the design of this pen, and I especially for some reason really like the simplicity of the black nib with that steel name shining through, and it's done nice and crisply. It's not sloppy. Well done. Using the pen, filling it, that's all good. And really, I guess if I'm going to talk about how much I like that resin, I need to give a shout out again to Mackenzie Penworks, who actually made that part of the pen, because this is really nicely poured and nicely done. The proportion of that diamond cast sparkle to the colors, the depth of the blue, it all just works well together. I think this is kind of one of those ideas that could have easily gone over the top, and then, maybe I wouldn't have liked it so much, but this is not. This is really nicely done, at least to my eye. Obviously, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I like it. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. I'd like to know what you think about both things, the pen and the ink. I like the ink as well, and again, I'll save my overall critique there for that review. What do you think? And what has been your experience with Opus 88 pens in the past? Because I would also like to know that. And if you were going to tweak a croque monsieur sandwich, what cheese are you using? Because, I'm cheesy. I like to know those things, and it could actually change my lunch sometime next week. You never know. Okay? All right. God bless you. Enjoy your pens. Have a great week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And don't forget to do that and to hit that bell. And I'll see you in the next review.